If you live outside of the U.S. and you have an LLC, you don't have to pay taxes in the U.S. if you have no effectively connected income with a U.S. trade or business. It doesn't matter if you have all U.S. clients, U.S. bank accounts. It doesn't matter if you occasionally visit the U.S. And today, I'm going to share with you a court case of when a client didn't pay taxes. The IRS said, no, you have to pay taxes. The client took the IRS to court, and then the judges in the court said that, no, actually, you don't have to pay taxes. Case closed. The taxpayer won. In the U.S., if the IRS assesses a tax, you can take them to court and we can look at the law, and the taxpayers often win. Now, I'm going to go over the court case here. We have the extracts from it. It's pretty short. It's also very old, but I'll show you how it applies, and we'll go through the whole case and even the judge's dissenting opinion, because I think 5 out of the 6 judges agreed, and then one judge didn't, and he explains why he didn't agree, but it doesn't matter because he lost, and he's a sore loser. So we're going to go through this because I want you guys to be comfortable, trusting me that I can tell you that you don't have to pay taxes, why you don't have to pay taxes, and then cite some examples for you so that you can be confident instead of me just making stuff up. I know there's a lot of people on the internet that just say stuff. We're going to look at some support here. Now, again, this court case is from April 3rd, 1942, exactly like, 80 years ago. I'm actually filming this. Oh, it's the 4th. But I'm actually filming this on the 80-year anniversary of the 83rd year anniversary of the Piedras Negras Broadcasting Co. and radio thing. The only thing that this case is missing really is an LLC. But an LLC is disregarded for tax purposes, and it doesn't change the facts and circumstances of this case. And it also doesn't cause you to have any kind of U.S. business just having an LLC. So we're going to go through that. It really... If Piedras Negras Broadcasting Co. had an LLC, Piedras Negras would still be the ones paying taxes and still be the ones in court, even if they had an LLC. So the case facts are really very, very similar. So in this case, Piedras Negras is a Mexican radio station. And just like we use the internet today, radio is broadcasted from a location, and it's all in the air. It's not physically in a place. And so this has a lot of parallels with the internet, because it's the radio, and they're both press a button, you can hear it, but you can't, it's not physically here, right? This is the petition for review of the decision of the Board of Appeals of the District of Texas. So income from sources within the U.S. Mexican broadcasting station deriving revenue from the United States advertisers. None of the income of a foreign corporation will reside from within the United States, or a corporation operated radio station in Mexico just across the border, maintained its office in Mexico, executed all of the income-producing contracts in Mexico, and there rendered all of the services in connection with its business. They recorded the radio, they did live radio from Mexico, they recorded it there, they had their studios in Mexico, just like you, my friend, are doing it from Romania or from Canada or from Mexico or wherever you're doing it from. Mexico, it's not in the U.S. So the U.S. doesn't care where you are as long as you're not here. Okay, the fact that the foreign corporation maintained a mailing address in Texas and received 95% of its income from advertisers within the United States did not change the status of the income-producing service. There is one dissent, and we'll go over that. One dissent out of all the judges that were looking at it. One guy didn't agree. But the rest of them did, and that's why this is case law now. It's case law that we can reference. If you take the IRS to court, you can cite this as precedent, and it supports your case if it gets to that point. But in this case, 95% of the income was advertisers in the U.S., and they had a mailing address in Texas. So you can have a mailing address. It was at a real physical place. They didn't have mail forwarding back then. It was at, I think, a hotel. The respondent is a corporation organized under the state of Mexico. The facts. Here's the facts. The taxpayer conducted its affairs in a familial manner. The income was derived from the dissemination of advertising over the radio and from the rental of its facilities to customers, referred to as a sale of radio time. So if you were to, for example, pay me to sponsor my videos, I would go to an ad break here and I would say this, whatever. That's an ad, paid for an ad. You might have ads on here. I don't know. I think it actually promotes it better to everyone if I have ads on. So there might be ads on the videos. I think so. But those are all done from Mexico. And all the service required were contracts rendered in Mexico. The company maintained a mailing address at the Eagle Pass, Texas, a used hotel room which it conducted and allocated the funds received the mails each day. So they had a guy drive to Texas, get the mail, deposit checks, do random stuff, and then go back to Mexico. Contracts with advertisers are handled through an advertising agent, an independent contractor. We talk about this so much. Having an independent contractor in the U.S. You can work with U.S. companies and U.S. contractors, like you can work with me, and it doesn't mean you have a U.S. trade or business. So you can have U.S. contractors, as it says in this example. The majority of the taxpayer's response for his listeners in the United States, and 95% of its income from advertisers within the United States. Bank accounts were maintained in Texas and Mexico. The books and records were in Mexico. Its only studio was there, and its broadcast originated in Pedro's Negras. Obviously, they're doing pretty well to fight an audit and go through all this. Now, the concept, income from sources within the United States. Section 231D of the old Internal Revenue Act provide that, I think it's still the same one, but provide the gross income of a foreign corporation include only the gross income from sources within the United States. They said the Board of Tax Appeals concluded none of the income was derived from sources within the United States. And we had this on the last video, maybe the last 2 of the 4 videos I sourced where I cited where the IRS sources their stuff from. If you have a retail store in the U.S. or if you have you perform services in the U.S., then yes, it's U.S. source. But if your store and everything's done abroad, if you have a marketing company abroad, if you're doing all the work, it's where you're doing the work from is where the sourcing is. Section 119 provides compensation for personal services performed in the United States, so we treat it as income from source within the United States. By Section 119C3, income from services performed without, that's outside the U.S., is not from sources within the United States. Likewise, rentals of property located without the United States, that means rental of digital property, are considered without the United States. So it's outside of the U.S. The rules are still the same. We can still look at I think they moved the sections around, but it's still worded the exact same way. We think the language of the statutes demonstrates the intendment of Congress. The source of the income is the situs of the income producing service. The repeated use of the words within and without denotes some concept of physical presence, some tangible and visible activity. If income is produced by transmission of electromagnetic waves that cover a radius of several thousand miles, free of the control or regulation by the sender from the moment of generation, if you put something on the internet, and once you put it on the internet, it's for everyone, that's what they're saying here. The source of that is the act of transmission. So wherever you're posting the stuff on the internet is where it's sourced from. And this is cited in tax law, and this is in case law. Not tax law, this is case law. So if you ever had to go to tax court, you would cite a case like this. All of the respondent broadcasting facilities were situated outside the U.S., and none of it was in Mexico. The order of the Board of Tax Appeals is affirmed. So they approved the appeal, basically. If they lost, that I wouldn't cite this in my video. But the taxpayer won. They didn't pay taxes. That was the end of it. And then there's one grumpy judge. He said what a lot of American CPAs say. And this guy is dissenting. He doesn't agree with the majority opinion. So he's the minority. He's the one guy who doesn't agree. And this is what I hear from a lot of local American CPAs. When people come to me after working with a CPA in the U.S., they say, well, this guy said that all my clients are in the U.S., all my advertising to the U.S., I have contractors in the U.S., so I have to pay U.S. taxes. That accountant that you worked with in the past, he would agree with this judge. But according to the opinion, the courts don't agree with this judge, and they wouldn't agree with the accountant you worked with, and you paid taxes when you shouldn't have. If you paid taxes because you got bad advice from an accountant, and you've been doing all your work abroad, marketing, e-commerce, services, you're doing everything abroad, and you've been paying taxes, we can fix it. We can get the money back. That's another reason I know this works is because we've helped clients in the past get refunds of taxes they paid when they shouldn't have paid taxes. If you need to cite this because you go to tax court, this is it. This is the up there. You can pause the screen and look at it. We can help you if you want help setting up an LLC or getting addresses, bank accounts, doing it all the right way and making sure you're operating the right way. We definitely help our clients with that. You can schedule a free call with us at jamesbakercpa.com/free. Happy to work with you, and hopefully this helps you and makes you even more confident and gives you more peace of mind that you can operate with an LLC, have U.S. clients, have U.S. contractors, but as long as you're transmitting and doing the work from outside the U.S., you don't have to pay U.S. income taxes. And here's some support stamped by the judges that it works. See you in the next one.